Okay, here's the still life we're going to paint, or it's going to have a similar background to this. Everyone's still life is going to be a little bit different. But we're going to start by painting the background. And so I've created this vignette, this dark around the edges, dark in the corners, and that sort of sets off and focuses the attention on the still life in the middle. So to paint this, we're not going to use the colors that you see in the photograph. We're not going to go with those greenish brown colors. We're just going to do a more of a neutral kind of grayish background, but it's going to be a warm gray. So we're going to start with just burnt umber and white. Now this burnt umber that I have this year is a very gray brown. I've never had a burnt umber quite this grayish. So you can see I got quite a bit of white because in the center it's going to be very light. So I want to start with white. I don't want to start with the brown because it'll take a ton of white to lighten it. So instead, when you're working with a dark and a light color and you just want to, you want a very light version of that color, always start with white and add the darker color to it. So I'm going to keep adding some burnt umber here till I get it about the value, the darkness or lightness that I want for that middle area. And when you mix with your palette knife, don't just take it and use the tip and stir it like a spoon. Instead, what you want to do is sort of squish it down and always push it back into a pile. You don't want to spread it thin, you want to keep it in a thick pile. So you can see how gray that is. The paint itself looks brown. When you add that white, it's pretty gray. So I'm going to use a little bit of raw sienna here to warm it up a little bit. Push it towards brown, maybe just a little bit more, not too much. Yeah, maybe just a tad bit more, because I'm going to use straight burnt umber for the corners, so I don't want it to look too different than that. You can see where I tested it before. Yeah, that should be good. A little bit of warmth there. Just a tad bit more burnt umber back in that. Okay. So that should be good. So I'm probably going to have to squeeze out a little bit more burnt umber, or I'm not going to have enough to paint the corner. So there's just a little bit more of that. So now I've got my paint ready to go. Let's start applying it to the canvas.